Hello, guys. The name of my show today is Why Are White People So Mad? And when I say white people, why are white people so mad? I'm talking about the Trump regime. Um, After I show you a series of clips, you'll understand why they are so mad. Their regime is being exposed. Um, there's an old saying, shit floats to the top. And that's exactly.
Stephen Miller's cousin who used to babysit him goes mega viral with a brutal takedown of the fascist Trump advisor, calling him the face of evil before really tearing into him. These words are as fiery as they are heartbreaking. Many of you know who my cousin is. Being public about it is something I've struggled with. I live with real fear about what posting something this raw might bring. Elisa Casmer wrote in a July Facebook post that surged recently into the spotlight amidst Miller's escalating authoritarian horrors. I am living with the deep pain of watching someone I once loved become the face of evil. But I know that staying silent only deepens the ache. There's so much more I could say, and maybe someday I will. It's a long read. I'm wordy AF, she continued. Casmer stated that the ICE raids have given her horrendous panic attacks, but she can't remain silent. Last night, I found myself in a stage of grief I didn't even realize I had been carrying, she wrote. A grief that's been living inside me for years. Quiet, but constant. It comes from being so close to the root of something violent and vile in this country. I cried until I couldn't breathe. Hours of sobbing, gasping, shaking, sick to my stomach with a weight in my chest that was too heavy to fight. I was having a panic attack. I couldn't escape. Maybe it was 10 years of anger and pain finally breaking through the surface. Maybe it was the most recent ICE raids turning my rage into sorrow. Whatever it was, something in me cracked wide open and has shaken me to my core. I think many of us are grieving. Grieving a world that feels more cruel than kind, she continued. A future that feels further away each day. I grieve for the country we could be, one with unmatched wealth, intelligence, and potential. A nation with resources to ensure everyone lives with dignity, equity, health, and safety. A nation with enough technological and medical advancements to be something truly extraordinary. But instead, those resources and that wealth are being hoarded by a few, poisoned by ego and power, devoid of empathy, starving the rest. Our privilege has been wasted on cruelty and torture, targeting the very people who make our communities whole. The hardest workers, the most vulnerable, the ones who carry this country on their backs. A society is only as strong as its most vulnerable, and ours are at their weakest. This is not by accident, but by design. Your design, Stephen. Then there's the grief I carry inside my own family, the most personal and painful. I grieve a cousin I once loved, she went on. A boy I watched grow up, babysat, and shared a childhood with. The kid I made fun of for his obsession with Michael Jackson and Ghostbusters. The awkward, funny, needy middle child who loved to chase attention, yet was always the sweetest with the littlest family members. A kid that reminded me of Alex P. Keaton, young, conservative, maybe misguided, but lovable and harmless. Or so I thought. But I was so deeply wrong. And the realization that I didn't know you at all? It guts me. I grieve what you've become, Stephen. And I grieve what I've lost because of it. I grieve your children I will never meet. I grieve the future family you've stolen from me by choosing a path so filled with cruelty that I cannot, and will not, be a part of it. I will never knowingly let evil into my life, no matter whose blood it carries, including my own. I grieve for the power you've been given and for those around you who have enabled it. I grieve for the family I once loved, who lifted me up, who helped me through life, who made me feel safe, who now leave me feeling unsettled and even afraid. I grieve the realization that maybe I never really knew these people at all. My heart breaks every day, over and over. But most of all, I grieve for those directly harmed by your actions, for the communities here in Los Angeles, our shared home, for all of California, and the rest of the country terrorized by the cruelty you have brought upon us all. Casimir wrote. I grieve for the families shattered by cruelty dressed up as immigration policy, targeting hardworking, vibrant community members who are being terrorized for simply being brown. This was never about criminals or illegal entry. And now, with the passing of this bloated, grotesque bill, stuffed with more funding for ICE than most countries spend on their entire military, I'm left speechless. Where does this hateful obsession end? What are you trying to build besides fear? Immigrants were a part of your upbringing. Is this cruelty your way of rejecting a part of yourself? The Trump administration has been accelerating its brutal ICE crackdowns in recent weeks, terrorizing and harming undocumented people and American citizens alike. The truth is that this was never about upholding the law. It was always about hurting the people that MAGA hates and funneling even more power into Trump's hands. People always ask me, what happened to you? I don't have a clear answer, Casimir continued. I can only surmise it was a perfect storm of ego, fear, hate, and ambition, all of it mangled into something cruel and hollow, masquerading as strength. You were born into privilege, into safety and wealth, and somehow you've weaponized all of it. I didn't see the descent until it was too late. And now I'm left with guilt and shame. Could I have done something? My sister recently asked me, if social media had existed back then, if we had seen the horrific videos of you in high school, would we have spoken up? Would we have intervened? Yes, we absolutely would have. I grieve that we never got that chance. And here's where it hurts even more. We were raised Jewish. Stephen, you and I both know what that means. We were raised with stories of survival. We learned about pogroms, ghettos, the Holocaust, not just as history, but as part of our identity. We carry the trauma of generations who were hunted, hated, expelled, murdered, just for existing. We were taught to remember. We celebrated holidays each year with the reminder to stand up and say, never again. But what you are doing breaks that sacred promise. It breaks everything we were taught. How can you do to others what has been done to us? How can you wake up each day and repeat the cruelty that our people barely escaped from? We were taught to never forget where we came from, but you seem to have erased it all.
And it devastates me.
To be this close to the cruelty, through you, has left me ashamed and shattered. I try to fight your harm in every way I can, but it will never be enough. I can't undo what you've done or who you have become. I can't outmatch your reach or power. I feel helpless. The panic attacks haven't stopped since the grief cracked open. The tears won't stop, and the weight on my chest is constant. This isn't about politics. This is about humanity, about decency. And you have lost yours. You've destroyed so many lives just to feed your own obsession and ego and uphold an administration so corrupt, so vile. I can barely comprehend it. As surreal as it all feels, this IS reality. As much as I try to disassociate from it, the truth remains. Being this close to such deep cruelty fills me with shame. I am gutted. My heart breaks that this is the legacy you have brought to our family. A legacy I never asked to share with you, and one I now carry like a curse. Round midnight on the evening of March 13th, 2006, something untoward happened in the nondescript rental house at 610 North Buchanan Boulevard, right off Duke's East Campus, where 3 of the university's lacrosse team's senior co-captains lived. It was spring break, and Duke's bucolic campus, in the heart of North Carolina's Piedmont region, was quiet, maybe too quiet. The lacrosse team had practiced that morning and afterward had met with coach Mike Pressler. Since Duke's cafeterias were closed for the week, Pressler doled out around $10,000 in cash to the 46 players to pay for their meals and other sundries. Afterward, most of them retired to the North Buchanan Boulevard house for an afternoon and evening of drinking and drinking games, such as beer pong and washers. On the agenda, at 11 p.m. to be exact, were performances by 2 exotic dancers. That afternoon, co-captain Dan Flannery called the Allure Agency in Durham and hired the women for 2 hours. He specified that he wanted white women. They would be paid $400 each, money that the co-captains collected from some of their teammates, who put in $20 each. Kim Roberts, then 31, who is half black and half Korean, arrived at the appointed hour. Crystal Gale Mangum, then 27, who is black, showed up about 30 minutes later. A friend had driven her there in his car and then left. There were some signs that she had been drinking and was already unsteady on her feet. After Roberts and Mangum arrived at the house, the players debated whether to proceed because the dancers were not white, as Flannery had requested. But they decided to go ahead anyway. Just before midnight, it was showtime. There were about 20 to 25 young guys there who were all sitting down, Roberts recalled. Mangum and I began our show, which, in my opinion, seemed to be going well, observed Flannery. Guys were cheering and yelling. Things quickly got out of hand. David Evans, another of the senior co-captains who lived at the house, noted that Mangum couldn't talk or stand up straight. She was so high. Peter Lamotte, then 21, from Chevy Chase, Maryland, asked Roberts if she put objects up her vagina. Her response, according to Flannery, was something along the lines of, "I would put your dick in me, but you're not big enough." Lamotte then grabbed a broomstick, showed it to Roberts, and said, "Would this do?" In another version of this incident, according to Matt Zash, the third co-captain who lived at the house, Roberts allegedly said, "What's wrong, white boy? Is your dick too small?" Lamotte then grabbed a broomstick and told Roberts, "I'm going to shove this up you." And then things got much worse. Within hours, Mangum claimed she had been kidnapped and raped and sexually assaulted in Evans's bathroom by an ever-changing number of white Duke lacrosse players at the party. She told that story in the early hours of March 14th to a counselor at Durham Access, a social services center, and then again to a nurse at the Duke University Hospital. The nurse examined her and concluded she had been sexually assaulted. Mangum also told several Durham police detectives that 3 white Duke lacrosse players had raped her in the bathroom at 610 North Buchanan Boulevard. They believed her, setting in motion a series of extraordinary events that would shock the nation as law enforcement officials in North Carolina tried to figure out what, if anything, the lacrosse players had done to Mangum in David Evans's bathroom after the dancing had stopped so abruptly. Later explained, "I raised my voice to the boys and said the show was over." To decide what to do next, Roberts then grabbed Mangum, and together they headed into David Evans's room and then back into his bathroom. Some of the lacrosse players felt shortchanged. Guys on the team were upset and wanted their money back, Flannery recalled. Meanwhile, Roberts went to her car and changed clothes. She wanted to drive away, but didn't want to leave Mangum by herself in the house. Flannery told Roberts he thought Mangum was still in Evans's bathroom. However, she was passed out on the back stoop of the house, half naked, Flannery said. How she ended up there is not known. At this time, I went to the back of the house with Kevin Coleman, another teammate, who photographed her passed out there, and picked her up. I put her arms around my shoulder and walked her to the other girl's car. On March 23rd, at the detective's request, a local judge issued a non-testimonial order, or NTO, requiring the white lacrosse players to submit DNA samples to the Durham police. The players' attorneys had previously blocked the police's request to provide the DNA voluntarily. That's when Michael Nifong, the acting Durham district attorney, caught a glimpse of the NTO, a copy of which had been left on a copier machine outside his office, and first learned about what had allegedly occurred at the rental house 10 days earlier. After Nifong read the NTO, in all its gory detail, he knew all hell would break loose at Duke and in Durham. He figured, correctly, that the accusation of rape and sexual assault by a poor black stripper against 3 white, presumably well-to-do Duke lacrosse players would attract national media attention. Based on Mangum's allegations and her subsequent absolute identification of her alleged assailants after reviewing their photographs on a computer, a Durham County grand jury indicted the 3, David Evans, one of the senior co-captains, and 2 sophomores, Reed Seligman and Colin Finnerty, on criminal charges of first-degree rape, sexual assault, and kidnapping. The scandal would engulf Duke's campus for the next 13 months.
Let me tell you what you're not going to hear about this incident. Duke University and the parents of these 3 rich, white, rapist, racists approached this young lady and made her a deal. She had just gotten out of jail, and one of her stipulations for them to help get her out of jail was for her to change her story. So she changed her story and said she wasn't raped, and was also paid very well, I'm pretty sure. We don't know how much she was paid, but we are pretty sure that these white racists and these rapists paid her off to change her story. Now, this started to be a story about Stephen Miller, and this is where Stephen Miller comes into the scene. This is where he first started he's seen his opportunity to suck up to the Republican Party. So we're going to show you exactly what he did in order to get the attention of Donald Trump and the Republican Party. But I believe that she was raped, just like in her story. There were witnesses, there were nurses that took examinations of her and determined that she was sexually violated. And there's no denying that. And the fact that their lawyers would not agree to a DNA test of these three to test against what the nurses found in this young woman. So we're going to make this as short as I can, but this is a long, important story about Stephen Miller and the rapist and racist that he hooked arms with. And what I don't understand, these racists, knowing that they hate Jews, they hate black, they hate anybody of color. Basically, Stephen Miller has become a token nigger for these white racists because he's Jewish. And the only way that he can lock arms with them and walk in step with them is to turn against his own people. You heard the story of his niece, what she said, of his upbringing and his nationality. Now, why would he sink so low to become part of a group that puts him down, that steps all over the Jewish culture and the Jewish people? He locks arms with them. I don't know, at his head. Let me take that back. Sorry for that. That was very disrespectful to the viewers for me to say something like that, and I apologize. But Stephen Miller is a piece of shit. He is a traitor to his own people and to this country and to Israel. He fits nowhere. And in the long run, I'm afraid something is going to happen to Stephen Miller because of the lives he is responsible for taking of immigrants that come into this country. I don't know. Maybe one day somebody might drive up next to his car with his wife and his kid in there and blow his brains out and then drive away. I don't know. But I kind of feel that he is going to have to pay for what he's done. And somebody is going to make him pay for it in the long run. But let me get back to this so we can end this part of the video.
To this conflagration of economic, racial, and sexual politics came Stephen Miller, a 20-year-old Duke Jr. from Santa Monica, California, who wouldn't have known a lacrosse stick if you were hit over the head with one. A columnist for the Chronicle, the Duke student newspaper, Miller defended the lacrosse players in print, despite nearly universal condemnation of them by others on campus and in the media. His outspoken support for the players, even before the indictments were handed up, got him plenty of national media attention, which he enthusiastically embraced. As he expounded nightly on CNN and on the O'Reilly Factor, among other television shows, it became apparent that the sordid allegations surrounding the case gave Miller the perfect opportunity to hone the right-wing political views he had espoused since adolescence. His passion for American exceptionalism and racial superiority eventually led him to jobs in Washington, D.C., first as a spokesperson for two right-wing members of Congress, Michelle Bachmann and John Shadegg, and then as a policy advisor and communications director for conservative Alabama Senator Jeff Sessions, now the U.S. Attorney General. Sessions, with Miller at his side, almost single-handedly killed the 2013 bipartisan immigration reform bill that would have created a path to citizenship for 11 million undocumented immigrants.
See, this is Miller's beginning of who he's become today. We know the cowardly little freak that Miller is today. We know that he is responsible, just as ICE, for the killings that have taken place in our country to immigrants. Miller is always going to claim that these are undocumented immigrants, which are lies. That they are murderers and killers of people in the United States, which are lies. Maybe 2% of all the people that they have shipped out of here were what they planned to hunt down in the first place. The rest were documented, innocent people who worked here in the United States to make a living for their families. We have farms that went bankrupt because of Stephen Miller, Donald Trump, this regime, this racist regime. Farmers aren't able to get out their crops. Now they don't even know who they're going to sell to, even if they do get out of their crops, because nobody wants to be bothered with the United States. Behind Donald Trump's tariffs, behind Donald Trump's war against the rest of the people in the world. Because Donald Trump is delusional. He's an idiot. And Stephen Miller just fed right into that, which was great for him because that's exactly what he was looking for in order to push his agenda of racism. The Jewish people should ask that this freak be stripped of his nationality of being Jewish. Netanyahu won't, because Netanyahu doesn't even like his own people. Otherwise, he would not be over there trying to destroy Israel the way he is doing. And let me remind a lot of you, it is not the people of Israel that are your enemy. It is not the people of Israel that are pushing this war onto the people of Israel. It's Netanyahu and Donald Trump. Both of them are pushing these wars so they don't end up going to jail. We know Trump, every time the Epstein files is mentioned, something big, he makes an announcement that's going to cause this Epstein files thing to be covered up for a short time, but we're not going to forget it. We're never going to forget it. We're never going to forget it, Trump. So everything that you're doing, you in the Republican Party, to try to erase what is going on is not going to happen. You guys in the Republican Party have stood up for Trump as he destroyed this country. You okayed, rubber stamped everything that he has done. I don't know if it was out of fear. You guys are just cowards. You're cowards. And racist. And pedophile protectors. Who, in their right mind, would protect a man that raped and killed kids with Jeffrey Epstein? Jeffrey Epstein and Donald Trump are two of a kind. They shouldn't even be called the Epstein files. They should be called the Trump files, because that's who he is. And Stephen Miller loves that, because he cares nothing about any other human being but himself. And Katie Miller, she's having Elon's baby. She's pregnant by Elon, not by Stephen Miller. She's having Elon's baby. I don't even think Stephen Miller can Stephen Miller is not even human. He's a reptile. He's a certain kind of reptile. So for him to impregnate a woman is impossible because the DNAs just don't match up. A dog can't have sex with a goat and have puppies.